Did you know food poisoning hits about 48 million people a year in the US, and leftovers are one of the easiest ways it happens? After 50, your body doesn't bounce back as fast. Inflammation hangs around longer, sleep gets easier to wreck, and blood sugar spikes hit harder. So the same "I'll just put it in the fridge" habit can start showing up as cravings, bloating, higher morning numbers, and stubborn weight gain. This isn't about food that's obviously bad. It's about leftovers that look fine, smell fine, and still get stored in a way that helps bacteria grow and makes you reheat food too aggressively. In this video, you'll learn the #1 leftover storage mistake, the container choice that tricks people, and a simple system that keeps leftovers easy and safer. Let's start with the leftover mistake that begins the whole domino. The "cool it later" mistake that starts the chain. Picture this: dinner ends, you're tired, the kitchen is warm, the food is still steaming, someone's talking, your phone buzzes, you look at the pot and think, "I'll let it cool first, I don't want to heat up the fridge." That sounds responsible. It sounds like something a careful adult would do. It's also the moment the clock starts. Food safety guidance warns that bacteria grow faster when food sits warm for too long. The goal isn't only to avoid dramatic food poisoning, it's to avoid repeated small exposures that irritate your gut, disturb your sleep, and push your body into a low-grade stress response. After 50, that stress response can show up as things you don't connect to leftovers: waking up thirsty, weird bloating, a night of restless sleep, a morning where your fasting glucose is higher than it should be. Not because leftovers are evil, because your body spent the night cleaning up a mess it didn't ask for. And it's not just bacteria. Warm time plus air also speeds up oxidation, especially in foods with fats. That's the slow breakdown that makes flavors go flat and creates off notes you can't always name. Then you do the human thing. You rescue the leftovers. More salt, more sauce, a sweet glaze, extra bread to make it a meal. That rescue habit is how leftovers quietly become higher sodium, higher sugar dinners that hit blood sugar harder than the original meal would have. So the first rule is boring but powerful. Leftovers don't get a long goodbye party on the counter. Get them cooling and into the fridge quickly. And if you're thinking, "Okay, fine, I'll pack it fast," cool, because the next mistake is the one that looks the most normal. The big container trap. One giant leftover you keep reopening. Most people don't store leftovers in portions. They store them like a treasure chest. One big pot of stew, one massive container of rice, a whole tray of pasta. Then for the next few days, you repeat the ritual. Open the fridge, open the container, scoop some out, close it, put it back. Nothing explodes, everyone survives. You feel efficient, but every time you open that container, you introduce oxygen and you introduce temperature swings. It warms while it's out, then it cools again, over and over. You're giving your food tiny heat cycles: warm, cool. Those cycles change the food. Texture breaks down, fats oxidize, flavors flatten, and when food tastes flatter, humans don't eat less. We eat more, and we add more. That's the diabetes link most people miss. It's not that leftovers cause diabetes. It's that the way people manage leftovers often turns balanced meals into a rescue project, loaded with extra calories, sugar, and sodium. After 50, those little extras don't disappear quietly. They show up as stubborn weight gain, louder cravings, and bigger glucose swings, especially when the rescue meal happens late. There's also the unglamorous reality. Repeated handling increases contamination chances. A spoon that touched your mouth, a lid set on a counter, a quick stir with a fork that was basically clean. One time, usually fine. Daily, it becomes a pattern. If you want leftovers to be your friend, stop treating the main container like a communal watering hole. Portion it into single meal containers. Less opening, less oxygen, less temperature drama, more predictability. And predictability is what your metabolism loves after 50. The plastic plus heat shortcut: when the container becomes the ingredient. Now, the habit that feels like peak modern convenience. You store leftovers in plastic, then you reheat them in the same plastic, then you eat them straight from the same plastic, and you feel like you won the day. I get it. Dishes are annoying. Life is busy. Nobody wants to wash 3 bowls because they ate 1 serving of chili. But here's the issue. When plastic is heated, especially with hot, oily, or acidic foods, chemicals used in plastics can migrate into food more easily. Researchers have studied compounds like certain phthalates and bisphenols because they can act as endocrine disruptors, meaning they may interfere with hormone signaling. Studies have linked higher exposures to associations with metabolic issues like insulin resistance and type 2 diabetes risk. though the science is complex and effects vary. You don't need to panic, you just don't want hot plastic to be a daily side dish for the next 20 years, and the cancer conversation shows up here too, not in a cartoonish one meal equals cancer way, but in a pattern way. Repeated, avoidable exposures stacked over years. A lot of public health advice leans toward reducing unnecessary contact between food and materials that can shed chemicals, especially when heat is involved, because it's a low-effort lever with potential upside. Also, old plastic is not the same as new plastic. If your container is scratched, cloudy, stained orange from tomato sauce, or warped, like it survived a minor war, it's seen enough. Wear increases surface area, and it's a good reason to retire it. So, here's the upgrade that changes everything without making your kitchen feel like a museum. Store in whatever you want, but reheat in glass or ceramic when you can. Even if you keep the convenience of plastic storage, make reheating the clean step. But even if you never touch plastic again, there's a leftover habit that can still push cancer-related compound formation because it's not about the container. It's about how you revive food. The make it crispy again habit that turns. Reheating into recooking. Leftovers lose their magic in the fridge, so people try to bring the magic back. They broil the top, they air fry the edges, they toast the bread again, they pan fry the rice until it crackles, they bake the pizza until the crust goes from golden to I should probably stop. And it tastes incredible. Here's what's happening. When starchy foods are cooked at high temperatures and browned heavily, compounds like acrylamide can form. Acrylamide has shown cancer effects in animal studies, and public health guidance generally treats it as worth reducing by avoiding very dark browning and charring, especially as a repeated habit. Leftovers are drier, so they brown faster. That means your refresh routine can push food into deeper browning chemistry more often than you realize. Proteins have their version too. When meat is cooked at very high heat until heavily browned or charred, researchers have identified compounds like heterocyclic amines and polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons. These are associated with high-temperature cooking and have been studied in relation to cancer risk. Again, not a one-time panic, a pattern problem. And here's the metabolic twist. Over-browned leftovers often taste harsher, so people chase balance with something sweet or extra starchy afterward. That's how dinner turns into dessert just because. And blood sugar gets dragged into the story. You don't have to eat sad, soggy leftovers. The move is gentle heat first, moisture, cover, and then a brief finish. If you truly want texture, warm it, don't recook it. Now at this point, some people are thinking, so leftovers are a trap? No, leftovers are a superpower, but only if you stop doing the one thing that makes leftovers risky in a way most people never suspect, because it doesn't happen while you're eating them. It happens before they even hit the fridge. The lid on while hot mistake. Sealed food that's actually sweating. This one is a classic. You're trying to be neat. You pack the leftovers, snap the lid on, and slide it into the fridge while it's still warm. Covered, protected, contained. But warm food sealed in a container creates a humid little world inside. It traps steam. Condensation forms, water droplets collect on the lid and fall back down. Moisture speeds up texture breakdown and can support microbial growth. So the next day, the food is wetter, softer, and somehow less satisfying. That's when the rescue happens again. Extra salt, extra sugar, extra sauce, extra bread. And now you're not just eating leftovers, you're eating leftovers plus your coping strategies. The fix is almost annoyingly simple. Vent it first. Let steam escape. Cool it faster in a shallow container, then seal it once it's no longer steaming like a sauna. You're not letting it sit out forever. You're just not trapping moisture like you're trying to marinate it in its own breath. And here's where we're going next, because this is the part that makes people pause the video and walk to their fridge. Even if you cool quickly, portion smart, avoid hot plastic, and stop charring everything, there's still one storage choice that quietly keeps your leftovers in a riskier zone. Because the best spot in your fridge where it's easy to see, easy to grab, and makes you feel organized might be the exact spot you should stop using once you're over 50. And the reason comes down to one thing: temperature stability. Because fridges don't chill evenly. The door is the roller coaster. The back wall can freeze lettuce into sadness, the top shelf can run warmer than you think depending on the model, and every time you open the door, the easy access zone gets a mini heat wave. Leftovers hate mini heat waves. Bacteria and oxidation love them, especially in busy family kitchens. Let's talk about the shelf most people trust the most, the front and center easy grab zone. In a lot of fridges, that spot is either the top shelf near the door or the middle shelf right where your eyes land. It feels clean, it feels safe. It feels like the VIP lounge for your next meal. But easy access usually means most temperature drama. Every time the door opens, warm room air rushes in, and the first places that feel it are the door shelves and the front edges of the top and middle shelves. Then the door closes and everything cools back down. Do that 10 times a day, 20 times a day, 40 times a day, and your leftovers are riding a little roller coaster. Here's why that matters after 50. It's not only about getting violently sick, it's about the small, repeated irritations, mild stomach upset you blame on stress. Sleep that feels lighter, a morning where your appetite is weird, cravings that show up out of nowhere, and blood sugar that runs higher because your body spent the night dealing with inflammation. So the first upgrade is a placement upgrade. Put leftovers deeper in the fridge where temperature is steadier, not on the door, not right at the front edge, not in the grab-and-go blast zone. Quick test. If you can grab your leftovers without moving anything, they're probably too close to the front. Convenience feels good, but it's also where the temperature swings hit first in most fridges. And before someone says, "My fridge is cold, everything is cold," let me show you the second problem most people never consider: the overpacked fridge when cold air can't do its job. Fridges don't cool by willpower, they cool by airflow. Cold air needs space to move. When shelves are packed tight containers pressed together, bags stuffed into corners, items stacked like a game of kitchen Jenga, you create warm pockets. A warm pocket is a small thing that becomes a big thing over time because bacteria and spoilage don't need your entire fridge to be warm. They only need one slightly warmer zone, repeatedly. This is why people can swear, "My fridge is set correctly," and still end up with leftovers that go weird faster than expected. Not because the thermostat is lying, but because your food is sitting in an uneven climate. The simple fix is not buy a new fridge, it's space. Leave gaps between containers. Don't press hot dishes against the back wall. Don't bury leftovers behind a wall of produce and drinks. You're not trying to create a showroom, you're trying to create circulation. Now, even if you store leftovers in the steady zone and give them breathing room, there's one leftover category that plays by different rules because the risk is not just it might taste off. The risk is that it can make you sick even when it tastes normal. The rice and pasta problem, the leftover that doesn't forgive just this once. Cooked rice and pasta are infamous for a reason. They can be a playground for certain bacteria, including Bacillus cereus, if they sit warm too long before refrigeration. And here's the nightmare detail. Some toxins produced in food aren't reliably destroyed by reheating. That means you can do the right thing later. Heat it until it's hot and still lose, because the mistake happened earlier when the food hung out in the danger zone. After 50, a stomach bug isn't always a quick inconvenience. Dehydration hits harder. Blood pressure can swing, sleep gets wrecked, stress hormones go up, appetite gets chaotic. And if you're managing prediabetes or diabetes, a couple of days of disrupted eating and sleep can throw your numbers around. So with rice and pasta, the rule is ruthless: cool, fast, refrigerate promptly, and reheat thoroughly. And if it's been sitting around and you're having to convince yourself it's probably okay, that's your answer. Now, let's talk about the part no one wants to admit, because it's not about safety labels or fridge science, it's about you. It's about what leftovers do to human behavior. Leftovers don't just sit there. They change how you eat. The biggest leftover risk after 50 is often not the leftovers themselves, it's the way leftovers change your habits. Leftovers create a low-effort food environment, and low-effort food environments create grazing. Think about it. A proper meal has friction. You plate it. You sit down, you decide what you're eating, your brain registers this is food. Leftovers, when stored lazily, remove that friction, the lid pops, a fork appears, you take just a bite while the fridge is still open. Then another bite, then you tell yourself it doesn't count because it wasn't a meal, but your body counts it. Small, random bites, especially in the afternoon and late at night, can make blood sugar more unpredictable. They can also create the classic, "Why am I still hungry?" feeling, because you never truly satisfied yourself with a balanced meal. You just kept poking at food like a bored raccoon. And after 50, timing starts to matter more. Late snacking can raise next morning glucose for many people. Late salty leftovers can disrupt sleep. Late spicy leftovers can trigger reflux. Then you wake up tired, cravings are louder, and now your day begins on hard mode. So the goal is not never eat leftovers. The goal is to store them in a way that supports planned meals, not accidental nibbling, which brings us to the storage system that actually works without turning you into a meal prep monk. The leftover system that protects you without ruining your life. Here's the system. Not perfect, not fussy, just protective. When dinner is done, don't leave the food to lounge on the counter until it's basically room temperature. Move it into shallow containers so it cools faster. If it's a huge pot, split it. Heat holds in the center like a secret, and that secret becomes bacteria's favorite hobby. Let steam escape for a short window, then seal. You want to avoid trapping a rainforest in the container, but you also don't want uncovered food sitting there, absorbing kitchen air and drying into sadness. Think. Vent, cool, close, then portion. 1 meal per container is the cheat code. It reduces repeated warming and repeated spooning. It keeps flavors cleaner, and it reduces the rescue effect, where you keep doctoring the same leftovers until they turn into a salt and sugar project. Store those containers deeper in the fridge, not at the front edge, and give them space. If you won't eat a leftover within a few days, freeze it while it's still fresh. Freezing is not failure. Freezing is time control. It stops oxidation. It turns leftovers into future you's easiest dinner instead of present you's questionable project. And yes, label it. Future you is tired and will absolutely stare at a container like it's a crime scene documentary. Now, reheating. Reheat only what you're going to eat. Warm, gently first, with moisture covered. Then stop when it's hot. Don't keep chasing crispy as the default. If you want texture, finish briefly, not violently. And one more thing, if you're going to use plastic for storage, don't make heat the final step in plastic. Transfer to glass or ceramic for reheating when you can. That single behavior change cuts a repeated exposure without adding much effort. If that system sounds too simple, good. Simple is what lasts, but we still haven't covered the container choice that tricks smart people because it looks like the safest option of all. The "it's airtight, so it's safe" lie. Airtight containers feel like security. Tight seal equals protection. End of story, except airtight doesn't mean sterile, and airtight doesn't fix poor cooling. If you seal hot food too early, you trap moisture. If you pack a big hot mass of food into one deep container, the center stays warm longer than you think. The top cools, the edges cool, and the middle quietly stays in the danger zone. That's why shallow containers beat deep ones for leftovers. Shallow is not aesthetic, shallow is physics. And if you love the big container approach because it feels efficient, you can keep the big container. But you have to create safety inside it. Split the food, cool faster, then recombine later if you insist. Most people won't do that, which is why portioning wins. Now let's talk about one last leftover habit that feels harmless and is incredibly common. The smell test. The smell test. Why it smelled fine is not a safety strategy. A lot of problems don't announce themselves with a rotten smell. Some bacteria and toxins don't change odor in a dramatic way. And your own smell sensitivity can change with age, allergies, and congestion. So if your entire leftover strategy is "I'll sniff it and decide," you're basically gambling with biology. A better strategy is boring. Time, temperature, and handling. Cool it promptly. Store it cold and steady. Reheat properly. Don't keep reopening and rewarming. Freeze early if needed. That's the stuff that prevents problems, not heroic sniffing. And if you take medications that affect stomach acid, immunity, or hydration, or you're older, pregnant, or immunocompromised, your margin for error is smaller. That doesn't mean fear. It means the simple system matters more. Why this feels like your body changed after 50. Let's bring this home. People hit their 50s and say, "I don't know what happened. I eat the same foods, but I feel worse. I gain weight easier. My blood sugar is touchy. My stomach is moody." Sometimes it's not the food. It's the friction around the food. It's the late bites of leftovers. It's the reheats that got harsher because the food got dull. It's the extra salt and sugar you added to make yesterday taste like today. It's the mild gut irritation you never labeled as illness. It's the sleep disruption you blamed on age. It's the inflammation that hung around longer than it used to. Leftovers aren't the villain. Sloppy leftover systems are. So here's what I want you to do after this video. Open your fridge and check 3 things. Where are your leftovers sitting, front edge or deep shelf? Are they in one big container you keep reopening? Or single meal portions, and are you reheating in the same plastic you stored in? Those answers tell you more about your future health than most people want to admit. If this made you rethink your fridge, hit like and subscribe, because this channel is about the small, boring storage habits that quietly shape your health. And drop a comment. What's the leftover you keep the most? Rice, pasta, stew, chicken, pizza? I'll make the next video specifically about storing and reheating that one without turning it into a health gamble.